let me first say just on the logistics. At the end, let me back up and say from a big picture perspective, I think it's pretty clear right now, President Trump is willing to talk to and meet with and engage with anyone in the world. I mean, that we don't view meetings as a concession. We don't view meetings as even legitimization. It is our willingness to sit and listen and talk to anyone, any adversary, any ally, obviously, but anyone around the world.
Iran and the United States are set to hold nuclear talks in Oman after the February 6 negotiations were nearly cancelled, keeping diplomacy alive despite rising military tension. On February 6, the US and Iran are expected to meet in Oman while still at odds over what the agenda should include, signaling a fragile start even before talks begin. Iran's foreign minister confirmed the development with a post on X, using public messaging to show Tehran is still willing to engage on its terms. Washington is reportedly pushing for talks that cover nuclear and missiles, but Tehran has drawn a firm red line and is refusing to broaden the scope. Iran has insisted it will only discuss its nuclear program at the negotiations, aiming to block any attempt to fold missiles or regional proxies into the deal. Marco Rubio stressed Iran must negotiate with Washington on more issues than just the nuclear program, indicating the US wants a wider package and tougher commitments.
Secretary Rubio, can you confirm the format and location of Friday's talks with Iran and clarify, given that Iran refuses to negotiate its missile program and insists on a right to enrich uranium, is the U.S. open to a compromise if that means reaching a deal to avoid military action? And separately, if I may, how exactly do these negotiations advance President Trump's repeated pledges to help the Iranian protesters, many of whom are likely to see these nuclear talks as legitimizing the very government that violently massacred its own people?
Well, let me first say just on the logistics. At the end, let me back up and say from a big picture perspective, I think it's pretty clear right now, President Trump is willing to talk to and meet with and engage with anyone in the world. I mean, that we don't view meetings as a concession. We don't view meetings as even legitimization. It is our willingness to sit and listen and talk to anyone, any adversary, any ally, obviously, but anyone around the world. And so the president's always been open to that. He showed that in the first administration, and he's showing it again now. And so I think if there's an opportunity to engage directly with counterparts in the Iranian regime, the United States would be open to that, and that's what we're open to. We thought we had an established forum that had been agreed to. In Turkey, it was put together by a number of partners who wanted to attend and be a part of it. I saw conflicting reports yesterday from the Iranian side saying that they had not agreed to that. So that's still being worked through. At the end of the day, the United States is prepared to engage and has always been prepared to engage with Iran. As far as the topic of those discussions and what the agenda needs to be, look, I think in order for talks to actually lead to something meaningful, they will have to include certain things. And that includes the range of their ballistic missiles. That includes their sponsorship of terrorist organizations across the region. That includes the nuclear program, and that includes the treatment of their own people. The fundamental problem Iran faces and the regime faces right now is that what people are on the streets complaining about, this regime cannot address. They cannot address it because it's economic. Those problems remain. And one of the reasons why the Iranian regime cannot provide the people of Iran the quality of life that they deserve is because they're spending all their money, they're spending all their resources of what is a rich country sponsoring terrorism, sponsoring all these proxy groups around the world, exporting, as they call it, their revolution. But I remind everybody what I've been saying through my entire career in public service. I said it in my hearing when I was asking for confirmation through the Senate. The Iranian people and the Iranian regime are very unalike. In essence, what the Iranian people want, this is a culture with a deep history. These are people that are the leadership of Iran at the clerical level does not reflect the people of Iran. I know of no other country where there's a bigger difference between the people that lead the country and the people who live there. And so our hope resides in that. As far as the president's views on the way protesters were treated, he was very clear about it. And as you saw, part of what the president said publicly prevented mass executions that were being planned and were on the precipice of. And obviously beyond that, the president retains a number of options to how he responds to that and future events. But as far as the talks are concerned, I think the Iranians had agreed to a certain format, for whatever reason it's changed in their system or what have you, we'll see if we can get back to the right place. But the United States is prepared to meet with them. I think it was scheduled for Friday. Steve is ready to go. He'll be prepared for that. If the Iranians want to meet, we're ready. They've expressed an interest in meeting and talking. If they change their mind, we're fine with that too. We'd prefer to meet and talk. I'm not sure you can reach a deal with these guys, but we're going to try to find out. We don't see there's any harm in trying to figure out there's something that can be done. This is a president that always prefers a peaceful outcome to any conflict or any challenge.
Initially, the Iran-US talks were planned for Turkey with regional observers present, suggesting a more multilateral format and wider pressure on Tehran. Iran then requested the meeting be shifted to Oman and held in a strictly bilateral format, seeking a setting it views as more neutral and more controlled. Tehran also wanted regional observers excluded from the Turkey talks, reportedly to prevent the agenda from expanding into missiles and proxy networks. The US initially rejected Iran's request, but later agreed after pushback from regional allies, according to Axios, showing partners urged Washington to keep the door open. Axios reported at least 9 Middle Eastern countries urged the US not to cancel the meeting, warning that killing talks could push the crisis toward open conflict. A US official told Axios, and I quote, "They asked us to keep the meeting and listen to what the Iranians have to say. We have told the Arabs that we will do the meeting if they insist. But we are very skeptical," end quote. Israel is reportedly concerned Iran's missile program will not be curbed by a nuclear deal, fearing Tehran could keep expanding delivery systems even if nuclear limits are discussed. Israel views Iran's ballistic missiles as a major threat and wants any agreement to curb production, arguing missiles are the practical tool of regional coercion. Reports say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told a US envoy that Iran cannot be trusted, pressing Washington to treat verification and enforcement as central issues. During his Ankara tour, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran's ballistic missiles are the red line, signaling Tehran will not bargain away what it sees as core deterrence. Tehran reportedly believes including regional partners would inevitably force talks on missiles and proxy groups, which is exactly what Iran wants to avoid. The US has massed troops, an aircraft carrier, and fighter jets near Iran in a major show of strength, making diplomacy run alongside unmistakable coercive pressure. At the same time, reports say Iran has rebuilt military strength since June's 12-day war, suggesting Tehran is also preparing to absorb and respond to any strike. Trump has continued weighing strike options against Iran, citing the December-January protest crackdown as part of his justification for pressure. Yet amid the spike in tensions, Trump announced that Iran and the US had initiated dialogue, presenting talks as a possible off-ramp from escalation. Soon after, the US faced 2 security scares in the Middle East on February 3, reinforcing how quickly the situation can slip from diplomacy to confrontation. On February 3, the US said an F-35C from the USS Abraham Lincoln shot down an Iranian Shahed 139 drone, calling it a self-defense action near the carrier. US officials said no crew were hurt and no equipment was damaged, portraying the incident as contained even though it raised the temperature sharply. Iran International cited the IRGC claiming the drone was on a routine and lawful mission, directly disputing Washington's account of the approach. Reports also claimed the Shahed drone transferred data back to Iran before it was shot down, suggesting the flight may have been collecting intelligence. Later, a US-flagged oil tanker was allegedly harassed by Iranian gunboats during transit, adding a separate maritime flashpoint in the same narrow window. CENTCOM said a US naval destroyer came to assist the American-flagged tanker, underscoring that US forces are already being pulled into protection missions while talks approach.